Hi, my name is Cliff Dunlap, and I am doing my video for our Fundamental of Oral Communications class, and I am in the group doing chapters 7 and 8. My group members are Misty Hardman and Joshua Mishu. First of all, I'd like to just do a brief overview of each chapter, and then go ahead and go into a little bit more depth about what the whole chapter covers that our group members thought were the most key points. In Chapter 7, it is understanding interpersonal relationships, which to really get a grasp on what this topic is, you really need to know what interpersonal communication is, and that is defined as parties communicating and where they consider each other unique individuals. So one of the points that we thought really important from the chapter is Mark Knapp's 10 stages of relationship in communication, which basically covers the whole scope of beginning of the relationship all the way to the end of the relationship. And not all relationships go through all these stages, but I'll go ahead and give an overview, and then I'll try to explain each and every one of them. So the first step is initiation, then there's experimenting, then intensifying and integrating, bonding, differentiating, circumscribing, stagnating, avoiding, and then finally terminating. So those are the 10 stages. Not everyone goes all the way through them. Some people stop at bonding, some people stop, and some people go all the way through. The first step, which is again initiation, which is basically your first impression of somebody when you first meet them, what you think of them. Experimenting is when you're figuring out and learning all the basic facts about a person, like are they married, do they have children, what do they do for a living. Intensifying is when you actually obtain a substantial relationship with somebody, maybe a friendship, kind of to the point where you start to miss the person, I would say. Then there's integrating, which is combining some of your things, such as maybe paying for bills, going in on a car or something like that, or maybe moving in together. Then there's bonding, which bonding is where you have something together that bonds you, and to where you feel a bond between the person. That could be getting married, buying a house together, maybe having children. Then there's the point where it seems to start going downhill, which is differentiating, which is where each person wants to sort of make, or maybe just one person wants to make their own identity, whereas they want to go out with coworkers and stuff like that, which can sometimes get in the way of the relationship and cause a little bit of tension. Then there's circumscribing, which is that you're pretty much going through the motions with the person, where you kind of go to dinner with them just because you know you have to. Then there's stagnating, where there isn't as much communication anymore, and where it leads to avoidance because you don't want to communicate with them. And then that goes all the way till the 10th stage, which is terminating, which is basically terminating the relationship. It could be mutual or it could be from one end. Could go either way. Another key point I'd like to point out in Chapter 7 is a little term called self-disclosure, which I'd say probably would go between the second and third or maybe fourth step, which is experimenting, intensifying, or integrating. And what self-disclosure is disclosing things about yourself that you normally people wouldn't know. Maybe it's an embarrassing birthmark or an embarrassing thing that happened in your past or something like that. And it's important because people usually don't disclose stuff like that through just regular conversation when you first meet somebody. That's why I wouldn't include it in the first step, which is initiating. You don't normally include that sort of thing. It's more of a one-on-one sort of thing. You don't do it in a group setting, and most of the time it's where both of you give information. It seems strange to people to give out that information and not get anything back from the person they're talking to. Now I'll go ahead and move on to Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is improving interpersonal relations, which basically adds on to the last chapter, which is understanding interpersonal communication. A key point that our group found was communication climate, which has nothing to do with the weather, but rather the emotional tone of an actual relationship or conversation. And it's not concentrating so much on the activities of what the relationship or communication is going through, it's how people feel about each other. And this chapter gives a lot of great tips of how to keep a positive relationship, as well as when the relationship does come into conflict, some types are better than the other. Some positive ways to keep communication positive would be using I statements rather than you statements. I statements more or less seem more as a conversation, whereas you statements kind of feel like you're attacking or prodding or poking at the receiver of information. And then also using problem or orientation messages, which seem to be more of giving options and solutions and stuff like that, rather than giving controlling messages, which makes the receiving party of the information seem very helpless and like that's their only option, which can also cause more conflict. Also, another good thing is to use spontaneity, which is basically straightforward use straightforward messages, so then you don't feel like you're hiding anything or that you have any other motives. Whereas using strategy in conversation can seem manipulative, where you have an end goal that the other person may not know about. And then also not talking to people with certainty, which seems strange, but it seems more of where, kind of like what we used to experience when we were teenagers with our parents, that they know something and that they're not going to budge and they're not willing to talk about anything else. And those are all really helpful tips that our group found that Chapter 8 provided for improving interpersonal relationships. Some of the conflict styles that we also found to be key points in this chapter is non-assertion, which is, I would say, not a good style, because it's basically the unwillingness or inability to stick up for yourself. Kind of like if you were in a restaurant and someone brought you the wrong food or the wrong drink or something like that, and you just don't say anything because you don't want to create waves. It's not a great way of expressing any sort of conflict, especially when it means not sticking up for yourself. Then there's the exact opposite, which is direct aggression, which is just lashing out and just blowing up, basically. That's not effective, just because it sometimes can create more conflict. Passive aggressiveness, which is sometimes called pseudo accommodores, guilt makers, jokers, trivial tyrannizers, and withholders. And that's basically verbalizing your hostility, but it's sort of in a strange way, and it seems sort of catty and doesn't come off well with a lot of people, and it can actually create more conflict. More appropriate way would be indirect communication, which it conveys the message, but in sort of a way where it sort of makes it where the receiver saves face, so then everybody can more or less be happy, where you can actually solve the conflict, but without hurting the feelings or embarrassing the other person. So those were some of the key points that we found in the two chapters that we went over. Then they were chapters 7 and 8. We hope you enjoyed the presentation, and see ya.